Alright, so now it's time to try to conquer the 4x4x6 Fisher cube. To understand how to solve this, I recommend knowing how to solve 3x3 Fisher, 3x3 itself. You need to know how to solve a 4x4, and need to know how to solve a 4x4 Fisher cube. I did a previous tutorial on how to solve this. I recommend looking at that first if there's any questions on that, because there's a couple of concepts that go into solving this that go beyond this, and also solving a 4x4x6. If you don't know how to solve these, I'll try to get into as much detail as possible, but there are aspects to the solve of this puzzle that go beyond all of these, so bear that in mind. Anyway, so we'll get started with this, because there's a variety of different types of parities and false equivocations and whatnot, and the concepts that occur with that. So regarding the scramble of this, there's no special way of scrambling it. What I would recommend, so that you can get the best challenge, is when you start scrambling it, scramble it as a domino. Now what I should say is a 4x4x6 is a classification of a cuboid called a shapeshifter. What that basically means is it's an n by n by n plus 2. What an n by n by n plus 2 means is that the parity of the puzzle is the same on all sides, which means the evenness or oddness is the same. Because the evenness and oddness are the same, it can move in all directions and shapeshift. That's all that means. So an n by n by n plus 2 means that whatever parity your puzzle is, whether it's an odd or an even, the other layers are also going to be odd or even. If you add 2 to it, you end up with the same parity of it. This is a 3x3x5, so 3 and 3x5 are all odd, so it can move in all directions. So that's what a shapeshifter means. It's an n by n by n plus 2. Now that's as opposed to a domino. A domino would be something like this, a 3x3x1, an n by n plus 1. And what that means is that you have different parities on different sides. So you have some that are odd and some that are even. What that means is you can't shapeshift. It doesn't turn from one parity to another. You can't turn one parity into another parity. So it can't do a 90-degree turn like that. So basically what it means is it shapeshifts on all sides, as opposed to an ultimate shapeshifter where you have the same parity on all sides but different layers. That's like a 3x5x7 or a 4x6x8. The parity is the same, but the number of layers are different on all sides. This 2 layers are the same. So with that, you don't get certain types of cuboid parities, such as floppy parities or brick parities. More on that later. My recommendation is to first scramble this as you would a domino. And the reason for that is you want to separate these layers out. So this is a shapeshifter, and let's first scramble it as a domino. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to come across. What I'm actually doing is I'm separating the top layer from the bottom layer here, because when I start scrambling it as a shapeshifter, these pieces are going to be bonded together, so to speak. They're not going to separate out. And if they don't separate out, then if you solve one layer, you're going to necessarily solve the other as well. So by doing this, I'm enhancing the challenge. Pop that back in there. That happens from time to time too. Turn and turn. Crack, flop, splat. So I'll continue to do this. Some puzzles love to turn. I would not classify this as a puzzle that loves to turn. It actually seems to fight me from time to time. So I think that's pretty good. We scrambled it as a domino. Now we're going to scramble it as a shapeshifter. So by solving this top layer, we're not necessarily going to solve this. So now we can solve scramble every layer like so. And I'm going to keep doing this until I have myself into scrambled nirvana. Abracadabra. Okay, pretty good. Really like puzzles that look totally chaotic when they're scrambled. Okay, so the first step, when solving a shapeshifter of any type, whether it's a 3x3x3 or a 3x3x5 or a 3x3x7 or a 4x4x6, what have you, start by solving it by the lowest n. So if it's an n by n by 2, solve it as an n by n by n. So this is a 4x4x6, solve it as a 4x4x4. And the reason that you're doing that is you're trying to get it back into its native shape. Now we went through how to solve a Fisher 4x4x4, and we're going to do it exactly the same way. So I like to do it as simply as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to first put in the top centers and the bottom centers. That could be whichever color happens to be yours. So I'm going to move this like so. Position the other red one. Got to find it. Here it is here. Like thus. And just move it in. Now I'm going to do this a little fast because I already kind of did this with the previous tutorial on how to solve this. So I welcome you to look at that. I'm going to go through it again just in case you lose perspective on this one. Now understand that there's two layers that we're going to be ignoring when we're doing the 4x4 solve. I've got these two. Let's move this up here so it's across from the red. Simply move this up twice, double turn, move it back down. Find the other orange one, which is right here, splat. Take this, move it up to here. So I'm going to cast the net down to here, double turn, bring it up. Now that we have these, we have to get the centers. The centers over here. Now we're bearing in mind the organization of the puzzle. The fact that you have red in front of you, white above, and blue to the right. In a clockwise fashion, red, white, and blue. So we can predict which center is supposed to be where. If this is red, this is going to be white, and this is going to be blue. Well, I've got these two whites already here. So we'll say red, this center here is going to be white. Now understand, this is not going to be the white center. This is going to be white in some other color. This is going to be the false white side over here. So red, white, and just to the right of that is going to be blue, which tells me that right next to the white will be the blue one. So I'm going to take this, move it to the side, put two blues in and put it in over here. Already over here. Maybe I didn't scramble it so good, but anyway, there it is. Bang. So next, we're going to put the blues in over here. I've got this. So I'm going to move this into place here so that it's next to it. Bump it out of the way. Move this back. Okay, what goes right next to it? Whatever opposite white. We know opposite white is yellow. So we're going to put some yellows in. So I'm going to, as quickly as I can, move some yellows into place to move it here. I've got this here, this here. I'm just going to take this yellow, move it next to here. This is next to here, bump it out of the way, move this back down. Now I'm simply going to take this and move this next to this, this pair over here. Move it to the side, cast the net out here, double turn, move it in. This is just center reduction. If this is too fast for you, again, review how to solve a 4x4. So that's good here. So this is yellow. I need to put another yellow one in here. I've got this here already. So I'm going to take this one, move it next to here, like so, out of the way, move it back. Okay, so this is good. The next color here is going to be whatever is opposite blue, so it's going to be green is always opposite blue. These two greens are already in, so let's move that into this configuration here. I'm going to move this to the side. Take this, cast it out, double turn, bring it back. And curse splat. So that's how we can simply do it. Now we have the last two centers. This is already in, so this is in configuration. This is not. Now before I introduce the concept that these pieces here, my contention is all of these pieces are basically corners. What we're calling centers over here are actually not the true centers of this puzzle. The true centers are in the middle and they're hidden. These are pieces that abut each side of it, so that's going to be like corners. So we're good, if we just swap these two corners, it'll be in the proper configuration. So the way to do that is hold it here so that one is to the right, one is to the back, and just do an adjacent corner swap. The way that we're going to do that is with the cuboid algorithm, and that's 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, UI, D, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R, and it's done. So this is in. So that's how you can very simply and easily reduce the centers. If you need a little bit further instruction on that, go ahead and look at the video where I did exactly the same thing with this. So we can even turn the centers in, so all these are fine. Now I showed a way of reducing the edges to make it a little easier to follow. And if this one was difficult to follow, by doing it standard reductive method of a 4x4 solve, this one's even more difficult because you have other layers that we're ignoring. So the way that we're going to do that is we really just pick a layer, let's say the red, and to reduce the edges as we would a 4x4 means that we're just going to do it kind of like a layer by layer. We're going to put it in each layer. Find reds on the bottom. Here's a red and green. This one belongs up here. So this isn't the correct one, so I'm going to take this and move it up to here. The way that I'm going to do that is my sliding U technique. So from this side, move it up where it needs to be. I move it up from the left, slide the U to the right, up on the end from the right. Slide it back to the left, move that middle back down on the left, slide it back to the right, move that end rather down on the right, and you can see this is in. Now let's do another one. I'm looking for more on the bottom. If I don't see any on the bottom, I simply take one from the middle, move it to the bottom, bump it out of the way, move this back up. Again, my goal is not to do a layer by layer solve, it's just to do a easy to follow reduction. Okay, next, anything else on the bottom? If there isn't, simply move this to the bottom, bump it out of the way. So this is a white. Actually, we've got this yellow. Why don't we do this yellow? When it's positioned like this, kind of upside down, find the yellow right here, move it up from the left, bump it to the right, up on the right, back to the left, down on the middle on the left, back to the right, down to the end of the right, move it in. So we're slowly but surely getting them in. Now remember, ignore this piece here. So this is good here, this is good here, just kind of ignore that, and this is good over here. We got a couple to do here. Here's a yellow. This yellow belongs here. Move it opposite to where it's lined up. Do a 2R from the middle. Bump it to the left, 2L from the end. Back to the right, 2R, back to the left, 2L, and there it is. So you can see that bit by bit we're reducing these edges without having to keep track of things with middles changing around and all that nasty stuff. Okay, this belongs with the white, same thing. This will come over to here, to L from the middle, move it to the end, 2R, back here, turn, and splat. Okay, that's good. I've got this green one. This green one belongs here. Moving this kind of fast because we've gone through this in a previous tutorial. Turn and turn. So in this way, I'm reducing these guys. Again, remember, ignore this layer. We're not doing it, not having it. This white belongs where? Well, not here. It's going to belong right here. So move it in from the left, swing the U, swing the U to the left, turn it at the end left, like so, double turn, back to the right, 2R from the middle, back to the left, swing it back to the left, and 2L. So we're good, we have one more to go. So this is a very fast and efficient way of doing this kind of reduction. This is in the middle here, just bring it down to the end, bump it out of the way. And now this blue is going to make it over here. 2R from the middle, swing it to the left, 2L at the end, back to the right, turn, back to the left, and turn. Now I keep reiterating, I'm not trying to do a layer by layer solve, but I just did a very quick and easy to follow edge reduction. What I'm going to do is continue the edge reduction for the orange layer. So I'm going to move this upside down and see what goes where. Well, as I move this, I can ignore this part over here. Next to this white is going to be a blue. So what blue am I going to use? This one? Well, the way that we can check is we'll move this to this layer here, and as you can see, it's not that one because it doesn't fit. So I'm going to move it back. So I just have to find the other blue one because there's only one other blue one. Well, it looks like it's here. So they're in the same layer, which makes it a little difficult. What I can do though is I can just do a corner swap. I'm going to corner swap this with this looking at these as corners. That'll get this into here. So that's going to be 2R U, 2R UI, 2R UI D, 2R UI, 2R U, 2R. This moves back. As you can see, this is now in, so this is reduced. I didn't do that in this puzzle here, but you could have. But this is how you can use these same algorithms to kind of get what you need. What about the other white? Well, the other white will be this one, and that's going to be right next to the green. So we have this green. Does this match with this white? I move it down and I see that it does. So before I make the exchange, I have to make sure that whatever's on top is not reduced. This is reduced, so I can't use that. This is typical 4x4 reduction. These two are not reduced, so I can use this one on top. Move this down so that this is reduced over here. Bump it out of the way, substitute this into that position, and then move it up. Okay, so now this is reduced, and so is this. Doesn't matter if it's upside down or not, it can still stick there. Now what else? Well, how about this orange and yellow? Well, if I move this up here, this is to the right, just like this is. So this is going to be right next to the blue. So where's the blue? It's right over here. So I can simply move this to the blue. I don't want to exchange it with this on the top, so I'm going to put another one on the top, which is these two. This is not reduced. Move this down so that it's configured here, bump it out of the way, move this down and replace it to here, and then move it back. Got to remember to move it back. So now this is in, and this is in. Now I see that these two are bound together, but are they correct? Is there a yellow and green? Well, here's a yellow and green. Is this the correct one? Well, I can take a look, and it just so happens to be. If it wasn't, I just have to move it out. So what I now have is I have all of these that have been reduced. So these are all fine. Once I've done that, I don't have to keep this in this configuration. This is just an easy and quick way to get these reduced without having to kind of muddle around. These guys are easy because to reduce them, you're just finding the ones of the same color. So here's the white. So I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm rotating the centers and not really caring. So this is going to come down to here. I'm going to be exchanging it with whatever's on top. I don't want to use any of these. They've been reduced. So we find another one. In this case, I'm going to use this. The biggest problem that you might have here is perspective. But basically, this is the one that's on top of this guy, so that when I move... Whoop. Oh, bring this back here. So when I move this down to match with this, it's going to exchange with this top one over here. So move it down to match these two, bump it out of the way, move this one in, immediately get it back. So this is in, I've got one more to go. So by the time I've done these reduced, this reduction doesn't take much time at all. But I've got these two edges need to be reduced. The way to do that is take it to where the same color is right opposite each other. Same on the top, same on the bottom. So obviously it's not like this. Put it next to each other. Again, this is not a new technique. Simple 4x4 reduction. So what's going to happen is this will come here, this will come here. And the way that this works is move this to the side, move this across, then do R, Fi, U, Ri, F, and remember to move it back. Alright, so you've now reduced the 4x4 component, and I'm simply going to do a 4x4 solve. So let's pick a center. Let's say we'll do the, well, the first thing we'll do is let's get all these centers rotated correctly. So green to green, yellow to yellow, blue to blue, white to white. Okay, this is already in. This is not. Well, yeah, this is already in too. Again, ignore this. That's a layer to come. Let's take this, move this to the bottom. This guy belongs over here. Rotate this down to put this in place, and then rotate it up. So we're getting the 4x4 cross. Okay, to move this in, let's move this center down. Move this up so that the color matches. Move this up here, bring this back. So here's my cross. I simply wheel the corners in now. Turn, turn. Okay, this goes into the blue right over here. Remember, these are corners I'm putting in now, not edges, although they may look like it, so we're good. Now for the yellow, move it in. The green, typical 4x4 solve, and again you're seeing why I'm not a speed cuber. So this layer is in. We turn it upside down, and now we're putting the middle layers in that we had reduced. This yellow will come to here, UR, UI, RI, U, LI, UI, L. Typical beginner's method technique. I'm doing my 4x4 solve. Actually, I'm doing my 3x3 solve as I did my 4x4 reduction. So this will come into here. Turn, turn, and turn. So now we're seeing another familiar situation. You guys know what this is? Is this parity or is this false equivocation? To show what I mean, I'm just going to rotate this in. So you see 3 are rotated correct and 1 is upside down. Now I went through a situation that happened in the Fisher cube and we thought that this was a parity situation. And you can look at it as a parity situation, but I showed how you can get this exact situation on a 3x3 where you don't get a parity situation. So the way that you can look at this, instead of being a parity where you have to do a Red Bull algorithm to flip this around, is think of it as a false equivocation, which means that one of these edges is rotated incorrectly. This is what I call rotational equivalency, where you can rotate it 180 degrees and it'll look just the same. By rotating this will rotate back. So I'm making use of the unique Fisher mechanism with this in order to show that this could be thought of as false equivocation. So once again, I can recreate that here. All I'm doing is I'm flipping this one around, and by flipping it around, as you can see, I've recreated that. I've recreated the situation where I have 3 up and 1 down. You can't do that on a 3x3, but you can on a Fisher cube because this is rotational equivalency. So you don't have to look at it as a parity because it's a parity if you reduced it wrong from an even to an odd, or a parity problem rather. Okay, I already went into that in the solve of the other one, so you can see that this is fine. So what I'm going to do, if you get in a situation like this, take any one of these and rotate it. To rotate it, bring it up here, wheel it around, and put it back in. U, R, UI, RI, U, LI, UI, L. Wheel it around and put it back in. And there it is. So now these are up. So I did not solve it as a parity problem. I simply solved it as a false equivocation. You could do the Red Bull, but you have the choice of not, and I don't look at them as the same. So now the next step that I do is rotate these up. You can rotate these corners up by doing RIDA, RD. So you can do the same thing with this. I'm going to do a quick alternative technique to do it faster. So my suggestion is to rotate the corners up first. All right, now that we have that, what we're going to want to do, these have all been reduced, so they're all fine. I would place the corners in. I would put the corners in where they're supposed to be. Rotate them in before putting the edges in. Just going to work better that way. When you're dealing with supercuboids, it's an easier solve. So this is where it needs to be. Nothing else is. If you see one is in, you want to make it to where 2 are in right next to each other. If you don't have that configuration, just do a random corner swap. So I'm just going to swap these two. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, UI, D, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R, and this is moved back. Okay, now you find what configuration will put 2 in. Okay, so you see this blue is lined up, this is lined up, so we have these 2 that are in. So now we're just going to rotate these 2. We're going to swap these guys. Typical cuboid corner swap. 2R. Now you can move this or move both. Doesn't matter. U, 2r, ui, 2r, ui, d, 2r, ui, 2r, u, 2r, move this back. So you can see is this is in, this is in, this is in, and this is in. So the next step that you want to do is you want to rotate, you want to do edge swaps to rotate these guys in. Okay, so what you're going to find is this is in, and this is in. So what we have is we have parity. We have a situation that you would never get in this, even in a Fisher cube. So basically, you're not supposed to have two that are out. This is a parity. To solve this, there's no way of getting around it. There's no false equivocation anywhere. This is a parity. This requires what I call the URF algorithm. And it might be a little harder to follow on a cuboid, but you do it the same way as you did with the Fisher cube. And again, I suggest you look at this tutorial if this part confuses you. But hold one to the left, one to the right, and follow the algorithm of UI, that's the middle UI, then R, Fi, and then reverse it with U, Ri, F. Then do a middle U, and then a middle D. Then do the opposite, Fi, R, Ui, and then F, Ri, and D. And that will swap them. So we've done our Fisher solve. This was just a repeat of this solve. I went a little bit faster this time. But once you do the Fisher cube solve, the Fisher 4x4 solve, complete with parity and false equivocation, you've solved all but these last two layers.